Welcome back to the Your Project Shepherd Construction Podcast. Our last episode ended with Brian and Heather hiring James, their owner's rep, to oversee the remainder of the build. Their stress level and Derek's lack of experience got to be too much. In addition to his full-time job, Brian had taken on the task of overseeing the build himself in his attempt to manage Derek. Despite his good intentions, he continued to make avoidable yet costly mistakes. Meanwhile, Heather spent the last 4 months mostly alone with their toddler and newborn. Despite how much they wanted to finish the build and move into their new home, their plan wasn't working out. Both Brian and Heather were feeling the very real effects of burnout combined with parenthood. The final straw came down when Derek had the drywall crew apply a heavy spray texture to the walls. It's what Derek was used to doing, because in his previous job as a production home superintendent, that's what they always did. And of course it helped cover up some of those imperfections in framing and the drywall installation. But Heather had always envisioned smooth walls with a level 5 finish, no texture. At this point, Vivian, their interior designer, threw her hands in the air and had to walk away. It was simply too much. On her way out, however, she did recommend that Brian and Heather contact James, the owner's representative. After meeting at his office, Brian and Heather were thoroughly impressed by his professionalism. Even better, he is now taking over all the communications with Derek from this point forward. Brian and Heather feel that a shepherd has been sent to guide them, and they are happy and relieved to take the burden of managing their build and running their household off their shoulders. From now on, they will function as a team and prioritize their well-being even more than ever before. Fortunately, Vivian agreed to see the design all the way through once James got on board. For the past 2 months, James has been working alongside both Vivian and Derek, albeit separately. Initially, Derek was not thrilled to have James on the scene. He went from feeling like the boss to feeling like he was just another set of hands at his old job in the suburbs. Although it didn't take long for James to grow on Derek. For example, James doesn't show frustrations or take out anger on Derek like Brian and Heather do. Instead, he shows a lot of patience and has actually taught Derek quite a few things. "Hey Derek," James said, "let's go over your punch list." "Well," Derek answers, "the tile and flooring's all done, same with the cabinets and doors, I believe." James looks over at Derek with a smile and a shake of his head, doing his best to remain calm and friendly as he teaches young Derek the tricks of the trade. "I'm talking about your punch list, Derek. This isn't a guessing game, this is someone's home." "Okay," Derek says, knowing he's about to get another lesson. "Show me what you mean." With that, Derek and James walk through every inch of the home, looking at everything from the floor to the ceiling. They even go into the attic and look through every nook and cranny. Derek was surprised to find several rafters that hadn't been braced properly. Together, Derek and James go through the whole list of things left to be done and assign the name of who is responsible for each item. "This, Derek, is a real punch list," James smiles. "I'll review it one more time tonight, and we'll make sure that every subcontractor gets a copy emailed to them. Keep in mind that this is our internal punch list. We'll still have to do one more walkthrough with Brian and Heather to make their official punch list, which they will sign off on." Derek is defensive about every flaw that Brian and Heather point out. Heather is particularly on guard regarding the smooth walls and paint. She stands with her face inches from every wall, searching for each imperfection. "This is why I did the orange peel texture, to hide those imperfections in the walls," Derek argued. "And those scuff marks, those weren't there before you moved in. That happened from your movers." Picking up on the escalating friction, James stepped in. "Look, you're both right about the walls. Unfortunately, your poor choices in framing material are now reflected in this final product. This is one of those things that we discussed. You're seeing the results of what was done 9 months ago." Derek feels Heather's eyes shooting daggers in his direction, and he does his best to avoid eye contact with her. "As for the scuffs on the walls," James continued, "those are probably from the movers, but we don't know for sure. However, the painters have to come back to finish the laundry room, so we'll just have them touch those up too, this one more time." "The truth is," James said, "you're probably going to continue to notice little things like this here and there. That's normal. No house is perfect." Derek smiles a little bit too obnoxiously, while Brian and Heather both feel their frustrations about to boil over. Vivian stands in the corner, just thankful that James is taking the reins so she doesn't have to play peacemaker anymore. "What we have to do now," Brian said, "to be fair to everyone involved, is to have a standard that we hold the work up against. Now, since your contract doesn't contain any performance standards, we'll have to use the state builder's contract standards. It's what a court would usually use if this thing went that far, and we all know that we don't want that." Everyone shakes their head in agreement. "So the state standards read that any drywall imperfection that you can't see from more than 6 feet away in normal light is acceptable. Heather, that means that you can't put your nose to the wall with a flashlight on your phone to look for bad spots. Heather frowns. But, James said, it also says that there can't be more than a 1/4 inch deflection on the drywall from stud to stud horizontally or from top to bottom. So that means that a few of these wavy studs are going to have to be straightened. And Derek, that means holes in the drywall. Now it's Derek's turn to frown. So you're both going to have some give and take here. I know none of you like it, but honestly, you're seeing the effects now of a bad contract combined with your bad construction decisions. They all know James is right, and it seems to be fair to everyone involved. So the group makes their way through the home, agreeing on each area to be fixed, or not. James documents each item with a photo and saves it in a software keyed to the electronic copy of the plans. After a few exhausting hours, they're finally done. Despite his frustrations with having so much to fix, Derek can't help but feel thankful for James. He's learned more from him in the past 2 months than he did in the years working for the tract home builders in the suburbs. Brian and Heather are grateful as well. Aside from the Punchlist walkthrough and having to live with workers in the house for a few more weeks, their stress levels have been minimal compared to what they had been dealing with. And without the financial hardship of 2 mortgages, they finally feel like they can come up for air. Welcome to another edition of the Your Project Shepherd podcast. The purpose of this show is to guide you through the custom home process. And like I say every time, we teach that a successful construction project must have 4 key components, which are represented by an outline drawing of a house. The foundation is planning, the left wall is your team, the right wall is communication, and the roof over the top of it all is proper execution. If all these components are strong, your project will succeed. And as you know, and have just heard, we've been tracking along with the story about Brian and Heather. They've had a pretty rough experience so far, to say the least, in building their family's dream home. Well, now they're at the end. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They're starting to move in, and it's time for the punch list. And to talk about punch lists today with me, sitting to my left, is Steven Deutser with Park Lane Builders. Park Lane is one of Houston's premier builders, and they've been in business since 1989. Is that right?
Correct.
Steven and his company build new custom homes, do major remodeling projects, historic renovations, and they also deal with renovating a lot of homes that are having forensic and building performance issues. Is there anything else that you like to tell us about what you guys do?
You did a great job with the pitch and description of what we do. Been doing it a long time. It was my father's company. He started over 30 years ago. And one of the things just to add is that we found that we can deliver a really perfect, beautiful home to somebody. And then if they don't maintain their home, it can go south fast. And so we've started to maintain our clients' homes for them as well.
Oh, awesome. So y'all have a maintenance contract service, handyman type situation?
Correct. And we'll outline when we complete a job, whether we're going to be dealing with their mechanical, their plumbing, gutters, roof, generator, pools, and we schedule it a couple times a year or more, depending on what it is. And also we have a team that comes in quarterly and just walks the house and does a visual inspection to be proactive.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that is super important. That's why I did a whole episode of this just dedicated to home maintenance, because, just as it relates to warranty issues, if you don't maintain certain parts of the home, it can affect your home warranty, the manufacturer's warranties, all kinds of stuff that can cause unintended consequences, right?
It's huge. You can find sweating or anything that's going on, be proactive and make the problems go away before they become an issue. As well as we walk through the home on the outsides, we can just recommend that, hey, it's time to paint. And then you kind of set baselines for when things happen so people can budget accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe it's every 2 or 3 years the house needs to be painted. We just have it on our schedule and we roll.
That's great. I tried to do that a few years ago, and we just couldn't find kind of the right people to run that, because you've got to have somebody who's really proactive to kind of run that service for you. And we tried it and kind of set it aside after a short period of time.
Yep. And I'll tell you, I met with a consultant years ago that told me to do this. And he said that one of the things about it is your clients' homes are going to perform much better. But you develop a deep relationship that you've already built during construction. And you're also on the forefront of their minds, and they're always telling other people about you. So it's not a business that we want to have hundreds and hundreds of homes to do this,
Right.
but it's a service that we provide that's beneficial for everybody for those reasons.
Yeah. And you might get called for that next project, like 5 years later.
Oh,
Hey, let's
it's
go ahead and add this other room, or let's add this guest house, or whatever.
it's all about the relationship.
For sure.
Doing a great job.
So over the last 30 years, y'all been in business. I'm sure that you've seen a thing or two, and you've developed processes for wrapping up a project strong and managing punch lists. But I'm sure that you've also seen some projects where there were some major issues related to punch lists, probably in your forensic work that you do as well, right? I think all homeowners and builders have a story about the never-ending punch list. I know that I've been a part of some of those myself. We are constantly developing new processes and trying to eliminate that, but punch lists are always a struggle for everyone. Why do you think punch lists are so hard for most builders to get through?
I'll answer the question, but when you told me that we were going to be talking about this, one of the things I was thinking about is, when I was single, it's not about the way the date starts. It's how the date finishes that everybody remembers.
Right.
And everybody says they're in high-end construction, but there's a difference. But I guess in any phase of construction that you're in, or any type of construction that you build, finishing up is hard, I think, and it's getting harder in some ways because, number one, there's expectations, and it comes down to opinion of, we may feel like we're finished, but then it's subjected to the designer and the architect and the client. And what I like to say is that we are harder on ourselves than everybody. So what we do is we really try to punch out the house before we let anyone scrutinize us. And then hopefully we've narrowed it down to such a small area then we're making our list. And even though that list is small, it can still have 100 items on it.
Yeah.
Which is really challenging. But I think to answer your question, there's two problems in construction, and it's time and it's money. And I think always at the end of the project, there's a move-in date, and you need that extra week. And you're trying to set expectations, and people are trying to move out their move-in dates. And it's just sometimes reality that you get it as good as you can, but there are real consequences once the clients and the dogs and the kids move in the house.
I think that builders probably do a bad job in general, not you or me, hopefully, but I think most builders do a bad job when it comes to punch lists because it's just expectations that aren't managed, right? They're not setting the proper expectations up front for what the process is going to be, or they just don't have a process and they're just fumbling their way through it.
I would say that construction has been very busy in Houston. And there are times that we're all spread thin more than we would like to be. But one of the things that we've been trying to do is as those projects are coming to an end, and maybe you don't have you have a dedicated super, but maybe he or she is managing 1, 2, or 3 of jobs where we'll camp out somebody. We have a printed out punch list. We also have web-based. Everybody has so each trade has their list. And I think one of the things that a lot of times we'll get out of control is where you'll give someone a list and they'll just start working in all different points of the house rather than saying, it makes sense for these 2 trades to be in the house. So limiting the chaos, having them start in one room and working their way out, and then having the super follow them. So as they leave, you need to come back. Let's touch up these areas and try to finish a room at a time.
You mentioned touch up. Do you think that paint is like the hardest thing to deal with on punch list?
I feel bad for painters because I think at the end of the day, it all falls on their shoulders.
Yeah.
But we have fabulous painters of 35 years and love these guys. They're artists, but it does. I mean, they're the guys that make it crisp, sharp, and pull it together.
Yeah, I think paint's one of those things. Well, paint and drywall that kind of goes along with it, right? Because the painters usually end up fixing the drywall if there's an issue a lot of times.
Yep.
I think that paint and drywall is a very subjective thing. And so at the end of the day, if there's a dispute over that, you've got to say, okay, well, how do we settle this dispute? What is the guideline for what constitutes a punch list item or what constitutes a touch up? And that's always where the struggles are for us, I know. So, we refer back to the TAB contract that we use, which has some performance standards that are defined. You have to view a wall standing, I think it's 6 feet away in normal light. You can't get your nose up on it and use a flashlight. But I think that's what people do. They get up close to a wall and they examine it really closely. They're like, oh, there's this little imperfection, right?
Well, I think people become fixated on levels of perfection that we are all driving to. And you could become so fixated that once you move all your furniture and you never think about it again or you
Right.
don't see these things. But then there are things, and I tell my clients that we build in the same neighborhoods every day. We're not going anywhere. So if you're laying in bed and you're looking up and you see something, give us a call. Because even when you shake hands and you're 100% done, you're going to see something,
Right.
and it's part of the challenge in the game of coming back and just doing those minor touch-ups.
Yeah. How do you guys handle, punch list versus warranty on stuff like that? I mean, our policy is, once somebody moves into the house, it's not really punch list anymore. It falls under the warranty category. Are you kind of the same way?
Yes, that is the truth. However, what we do is we have a web-based program called CoConstruct.
Yep. We use it too.
Yep. And we walk through and we create our list, and then we both agree and hit accept that we agree. And then we go through our punch list. Out of the 700 or 800 projects that we've done, I would say that we've had 4 clients that it were the really toughies that make your life miserable. But as a whole, we've had some really good ethical people. And I think that setting those expectations through the build, creating the relationship, we've set a we set a baseline with each other of how we're going to work, the level of quality we're going to provide. And sometimes you get to that point where they move in and you've really got to rely on the ethics of everybody that, hey, the movers moved in, they scratched the walls,
Right.
they scuffed the floor, and then we have to figure out, and agree to this new scope that they need to pay for
Right.
us to
Yeah.
retouch up the house.
We had one recently where they said we have all these touch ups that were missed on the punch list. And I was like, oh, that's strange. And we went to the house, and all the touch ups just happened to be about 2 feet off the ground, and they have like 3 little kids. And as they went up the stairs, they would just put their hand on the wall all the way up the
Oh,
stairs
yeah.
every time.
Yeah.
And I had to say, you know what? Yeah, we didn't miss that. But
Our trades don't have hands that small.
yeah, yeah, their hands are a foot higher off the ground than than
Is that
that.
Cheetos?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Why are all the touch up orange?
So we also use a company called Vista. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah, we use them too.
It's been fantastic.
Oh yeah,
It's been a real game changer, and that's something that we document. Before we come into the home, all the MEPs, exact builds, and then final pictures. And so it really gives a frame of reference
yeah,
of showing, okay, look, this is the way we left it. This is the way it is since you moved in. So it gives us all a baseline to work off of.
yeah. And for people who are listening or watching, that's a photo documentation service that comes out at set intervals during the build, and they take pictures of everything from every angle, and we can view it on our phones, on our desktop computer, and it just creates this great documentation of, on a remodel, what was already there, or on a new build, kind of the progression from empty lot all the way to finished house.
But not to mention, it's also tied to the plans electronically.
Yeah.
And so at any given time, you just pull this up, you hit where you want on the floor plan, and it'll show you the entire wall progression, which is cool too, because it's not only for these types of things, but what happens when we're long and gone and they want to hang a picture on a wall and they could see if there's a pipe
Yeah.
or be able to see inside the walls at any time they want to.
Yeah, it's a fantastic tool. I mean, I think we probably use it more than anything. Like after, once the drywall goes up in the house, and we're like, I think we're missing a switch or a recessed can or something,
Yeah.
and we can pull up those pictures, and oh, there it is.
Instead of tearing out tile and being destructive on the home, you could say, oh, it's right here, and you know exactly where to cut, and there's there's the plug.
Yeah, I definitely think everyone should use that. We've been using that for a few years now,
Yeah,
and it's
me
been
too.
it's been a game changer.
Yep. And also, one more thing to add about it is I have a lot of clients that say, hey, we may not want to spend that money. A, you get to own it at the end, so you'll have it forever. But also, when whenever they're like, well, why can't you take the pictures? Well, we can. And so we always go, ch-ch-ch-ch-ch-ch. But inevitably, it's that like
Yeah,
6 inches that you missed, and
yeah.
it was the money shot.
And they're actually switching, or they just switched to using a 360.
It's huge.
What do they call that? Like a Matterport type
Right.
scan now, which is even better than it was before. So we talked about at the end of the project, people kind of being antsy to move in. Maybe they've got a bunch of stuff in storage, and they're like, "Oh, I'm tired of paying these storage fees. We got to get the stuff out of here." What kind of issues does that cause when people? I mean, aside from just arguments about who did what, I mean, what kind of issues does it cause when people move in before the house is kind of officially done?
All kind of issues. We just finished a really pretty home in Rice Village, and we hadn't put the final coat on the floor. So, but we'll always put down 2 coats of water base, and then we'll hold back the third right before they move in. And they were antsy to move the stuff in, and so they're all of a sudden the rugs start showing up, the furniture, all the stuff that needs to be assembled, and it's everywhere. And all of a sudden, you run into the situation where you didn't have money in for labor to be moving all this stuff around. You don't have room. You've got one shot to clean this house, really a deep clean before, and we do multiple stages. You've got your first rough clean, then you get your next level clean, and then you have your last final clean. And we just told the clients, look, we're going to do the very best we can. But by the way, a box of jewelry showed up, all of this expensive stuff. And we love our trades and we trust our trades, but nobody wants to be put in a situation of having these very expensive things laying around. And also us moving and leaning against walls. It's just a nightmare waiting
Oh
to
yeah,
happen.
yeah, for sure. Also, something else that people tend to want to do that we try to put the kibosh on. And actually, we've kind of made the policy where we just don't do this anymore. I assume you've probably gone the same route. But a lot of people want to provide some of their own items. They're like, hey, I got this great deal on appliances. I'm just going to buy my own appliances. Or, hey, my designer is buying the chandeliers, things like that. So, what kind of issues does that cause as it relates to punch list and warranty?
So you've opened up a big can of worms there. So I'll give you a few. That's a story that comes to mind. Well, there's so many things that just came to mind,
Sure.
but one on that Rice project, when the designers or the clients are providing things, they don't come labeled, and so then your subs don't know what to do with it. They're there, you've got to get it done. Nobody's answering their phone, so either it gets installed in the wrong room, or it comes in damaged. We don't know where it comes from,
Right.
on and on and on. And not to mention, usually it's way after the fact. So now the clients have moved in, and now you're cutting in the pocket door hardware, and the dust and sealing it off. And people are like, well, shouldn't that be included? Well, yes, if it was included, if it was delivered on time when all the subs were here. But now, that money's long gone. People have been
Right.
paid, and they're entitled to a trip charge. And not to mention all the house protection and good stuff that needs to happen. So that's one. Number two, I have a story where we had this really expensive range, and we supplied it and we installed it, and the clients and designers and architects came in, and everyone were really happy. And I had a plumber screwing in just one little touch, and the screwdriver slipped out of his hand, fell on the range, and just shattered the cooktop. And everybody was just like, and I looked over, and my appliance man, who I've been working with it started with my father 30 years ago.
Yeah.
He looks at me, he goes, I'm so sorry that this was damaged upon delivery. We'll get you another one. So,
That's fantastic.
well, there's tremendous value in relationships that people underestimate. And so, if you want to go to Home Depot, Best Buy, Lowe's, you are a number. You are a nightmare away of sitting on the 1-800 number. No one cares about you. What you're getting is the 30-year relationships where the subs and vendors do care about our clients, but people don't understand the relationship of that's one home. We represent, you know, 10, 15, 20 homes a year to these clients for decades.
Yeah.
And so that's the power of allowing us to handle it.
Yeah. The other danger that we have come across is, let's say that they bought that range from somebody else and that appliance company came in to install it and they gouge the hardwood floors, or they bang up the cabinet adjacent to it, or they break
Or
the
they
tile,
chip the countertop.
chip the counter, whatever, right? I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong just with installing an appliance.
And we're brought in back into it because ultimately we have to fix it and deal with
Yeah.
it, and we weren't paid for that.
Right. And, that Home Depot or whatever appliance company, quote unquote, supplied that, you have no way to go back charge them for anything. They've
Yeah.
already been paid. They're gone. You're not going to get money out of them for it. So now you're out of pocket. So that maybe 10% or whatever you saved by buying it yourself is gone.
And I'll tell you, one of the things that I think should not be underestimated are the quality of the men and women we bring into people's worlds and lives. You've got wives, husbands, children, and we know the people that we're bringing into your world. And so I feel like it can become a real safety issue when it gets out of our control and they just
Yeah.
start bringing in people, and all of a sudden people are inside the fishbowl looking at everything, and who knows who these people are.
Right.
And things can start can disappear, and then all of a sudden it's who subs did what. And we have an amazing track record of things not disappearing, and when something happens, they raise their hand, hey, this happened, and we work together to make it right. But when we lose control and other subs come in, we have no control, and that's when problems occur.
Yeah. And even on items like somebody wants to hire their own pool company or landscaper, that's always one of those big items that I've historically struggled with, because
We all do.
I mean, pools and landscape it's a large amount of money. It's outside the house. It's like, I kind of don't really want to mess with managing it. But at the same time, I mean, those things can affect the performance of the home. They can affect the warranty. There's a lot of issues that can come up there. Like, where does that company's responsibility stop, and where does mine start on some things, right? There's electrical tie-ins, gas tie-ins. There's pool decking and flower beds that are touching the house. So
Drainage, grading.
yeah, I mean, drainage and grading is a huge one. I'll tell a brief story that just happened. We're still dealing with this, but I let a family on a large custom home that we just built contract their own pool and landscaping, and they also had a family member who went and bought a tractor. This is on some acreage. Dad went and bought a tractor and started doing grading around the property himself. And we even told them during the construction, I saw Dad out there pushing dirt around. I said, do not build up dirt against the side of this house. This thing has to drain properly. Anyway, they've been in the house for a year and a half now, and guess what? There's some foundation movement in this brand new house.
The pier and beam.
No, it's a slab on grade. A slab on piers, but he affected the drainage so much that it is moving. And we're like, I hate to tell you this. I mean, I want to treat you right, but at the same time, you guys are causing this problem, and you've actually voided your house's warranty by taking this scope on yourself.
So I was talking to one of the landscape companies that I use, and at the end of the day, we're all trying to land business and work with our clients, and obviously a pool can get very expensive, and so can the landscape. But no matter what, we are tied to the outside. It's not a complete fragmentation of you handle the house and that, because we can't finish up our permits to even get them in the house. And what's the last thing that goes in? It's the drainage, irrigation,
Right.
and landscape. And so ultimately we do get pulled in, but oftentimes we don't get compensated for it because we just have to work together. So I do feel that, and I'm coming to the conclusion that I would like to be compensated for my time in management. And maybe it's not the same level fee, but there should be something because we all have to work together to get it done and get it done safely.
Yeah, that's the way we're moving toward as well. We're going to be involved on some level for sure, no
Yep,
matter what. So we need to be compensated, if not for our full markup that we would normally apply,
of
right?
course.
Something for our involvement in that, and for I guess the risk in it as well. Changing gears a little bit, kind of moving away from the whole punch list thing. This is more just about the custom home building process and the personality types that go into it. Is there a type of person, in your opinion, that probably shouldn't go through this custom home building process?
So what I like to tell people is that we are interviewing them just as hard as they're interviewing us. I've been building for almost 25 years, 51 years old, and I want to be aligned with the right like-minded people because you're tied together for could be a year and a half or more depending on the size and scope of a project. Um, and so I do think that there are certain people that should absolutely not be a part of new construction or a remodel or should just find something and move into it. Number one, it does do a reality check on your relationship. And so there's usually a couple that they have different things that are important to them. And part of our interviewing process is to extract, because there's a lot of things people don't know about themselves or don't know it's important to disclose. So, like, if you're haunted by symmetry or if you're OCD and trash and cleanliness is a thing, we need to know that to know how much trash and site maintenance to put in, because at the end of the day it's money.
Yeah,
And a job to me can also be too clean. Means nothing's happening because everyone's cleaning all the time, but
right.
we have those situations where we budget that in. So yes, I think that extracting what is important to each person and then really helping drive to there's not a one size fits all. So I may have a one super over another that may be a better fit. An architect and a designer, we deal with multiple people that may be a better fit. And
Right.
so assembling the right team, helping the couple understand who's going to be the finance person and who's really going to be the point person and how hands on or hands off they want to be is all very critical.
On the opposite side of that, do you have a dream client? Like if you could describe your dream client, what does that look like?
A lot of the dream clients are dream clients because they've done this before and they've had the nightmare situation with a contractor that either they got sucked into the cheapest bid and they got burned to the point that they realized the value of finding an ethical contractor. Things cost what they cost. And part of my dream contractor is that they respect what we say as the experts. We really listen to their needs. We assemble the team around them. But there's a lot in construction. So when you look at Instagram, everyone's got these beautiful pictures and everyone's just seduced by these gorgeous pictures
Yeah,
that everyone drives to. Well, if you look on our Instagram and stuff, I like to show, kind of like the way Toner and Matt Breisinger does things. Showing how the soup is made is really my passion
for sure.
because we live in the Gulf Coast. We live in the swamp. It's one of the most difficult places to build a quality home that's going to be here for a very long time. And our company is all about the health of the structure and the people in it. Because at the end of the day, if homes get wet and they don't have the ability to dry and they get mold, well, then it's not healthy for the structure of the people living in it. So we're pretty obsessed with educating our clients about the things they can't see and what the thermal envelope should be, and then working as a team to make sure that you're treating the home as an ecosystem that is going to perform for
Yeah,
years to come.
yeah. So a dream client might be just an educated client or someone who's been through the process before and appreciates the quality process, right?
Yeah, and understands that that they need to invest in some of the things that aren't just things that make the home look beautiful. It's, to me also what we like to do is to educate the client that, look, this is the one thing that you can control in your life, to getting natural light, drinking clean water, bathing in clean water, having fresh air, and a safe haven where you can rejuvenate over a 10 to 12-hour period. And then you go out in the real world and fight the good fight.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much wraps up the questions that I had for you. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
It was a lot of fun.
Great. Well, and thank you guys for being with us today, also listening and watching. One last thing. If somebody wants to work with Park Lane, tell us website, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Appreciate you saying that. So Park Lane Builders, our work number is 713-524-6200. You can go to www.parklanebuilders.com. That's ParkLaneBuilders.com. And we'll get back with you, and we'll set up a consultation and figure out what your needs are.
Awesome. Thank you, Steven Deutser.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And thanks again to all of you who are listening. Remember our illustration about the house that we always talk about. A very successful project has 4 key components, and those are represented by that drawing. The foundation is planning, the left wall is your team, the right wall is communication, and the roof is proper execution. Tune in next week to hear our interview with Chris Bolio from Alair Homes. We're going to talk about builders' warranties, and that actually ties in a lot with the conversation that Steven and I just had. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks.